Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Administrative Committee. Today, we have Bryce filling in for Drew, and Sandra and I, as usual. The first thing on our agenda is to approve the Administrative Committee minutes from February 26th.
Glad we had minutes to review because it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But that held to my memory, so I move that we approve.
Okay. Sounds good.
Second.
Any questions? Next on the agenda is the proposed lot line adjustment between 1326 Orchard Avenue and 1412, 1418, 1424, 1430, 1512, and 1542 Lanny Drive with not Amy.
You were quick.
Amy had an emergency, so I'm
Oh,
filling in.
I'm
for her,
sorry.
so.
No more joking then.
So this is really a follow-up to the rezone that the council heard last week. And this is a lot line adjustment for these properties. So 1326 Orchard and a number of properties on Lanny Drive. So as the council recalls, Orchard Avenue there to the west, Lanny Drive to the south, running east-west, Peekaboo Street, stub to the property in this location, and there's Sloniker Drive here to the east. Approximately 4 acres in size for the larger property, but also involves the number of properties there on Lanny Drive highlighted in red. So this gives you an idea of kind of approximate square footages of those properties, as well as the principal property there to the north, approximately 5 acres in size. So this would be the proposal, a lot line adjustment at the rear of the Lanny Drive properties, just increasing the size of those properties. So you can see there are a number of them, which include kind of the areas behind the other Lanny Drive properties. So these two kind of flagpole configuration or flagpole shape, but they'll gain primary access off of Lanny Drive, so that'll be the only frontage. And then this would be the original property that has the house and the shop on it here adjacent to Orchard. So after the lot line adjustment, gives you an idea of the square footages that result from the division, or the lot line adjustment, excuse me. The property is in the R1 zone after the ordinance was passed last week. And 80 feet of width for the minimum lot width. Lot area is 9,600 square feet for minimum. Setbacks, 25 in the front, 20 in the rear, and then the sides are a minimum of 5, but both sides have to equal 15. So all these proposed lots meet these requirements. So with that, staff recommends approval of lot line adjustment request with no conditions, and I'd certainly try to answer any questions you had.
My only question, Mike, is it seems like we flip-flopped that we saw this before in council, and now we're seeing it here, and usually it's the other way around. Did I miss something? Was I gone? Like,
The ordinance has to be approved by council before these lots are able to
okay.
have a lot line
Thank you.
adjustment. They need to meet the minimum lot size, so it was farm ranch before. It's
Oh,
a
that's right. Okay.
3 acre minimum size, so they
My memory failed.
needed to rezone before this could happen.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great. Well, since we already talked about this last week,
I'm in favor.
I understand now. Like last week, I was a little baffled, but now I get it.
Yeah.
Recommend
I
for
recommend
approval?
for approval.
Can we put this on consent?
Okay.
Great.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Next on the agenda is a street reconstruction project, bid results.
This is how you know when spring's coming,
Bob.
not when the tulips bloom.
Certainly did not feel like spring out there today. Walked over, I was being
Yeah, it was
pelted.
cold.
Yeah.
The engineers come out of our offices.
Yep, that's right.
Trying to spend
Daffodils bloom, the engineers come out of their offices.
Right, exactly.
Good afternoon. Today I'd like to talk to you about the A Street reconstruction project. This project would reconstruct 2 blocks of A Street from Washington to Adams, right there next to Russell Elementary. On February 24th and March 2nd, we put bids out to do this road reconstruction project. We opened bids on, let's see, what was it? March 12th. We got one bid for this project from, and I hope I'm saying this right, La Riviere Incorporated out of Rathdrum. The engineer's estimate, I'll probably mostly just talk about the base bid, as that's all we are really recommending for approval. The engineer's estimate for the base bid was $865,685. The one loan bid for the base bid was, let's see, $1,008,734.24. The alternates for the project were, there was one alternate to remove some water line that we were going to be abandoning. Another alternate was to remove some sanitary sewer that we were going to abandon. And then a third alternate was to do a complete overhaul of the storm system in the underneath the road. Those came in, some of those came in pretty good, but because the way the bids came in on the base bid, we kind of didn't really quite have enough money for some of that wish list type work. So staff is recommending acceptance of the loan base bid. Does anybody have any questions?
Questions?
Timeframe?
Timeframe. So I looked at how much work we were trying to do on this project, and because of its proximity to Russell Elementary, I really wanted to try to fit it into that 10-week window. And I didn't think that we could get it all done in that 10-week window. So discussions, we had an internal discussion about whether it would be better to do it, to extend it later into the school year, or kind of start the construction project earlier. And we decided it would probably be better to do it earlier, as where people are it's a little less chaotic at the end of the school year rather than at the beginning. So we felt that there would be less impact to the school if we cut into the end of the school year. This was, of course, prior to any knowledge of their possible plans to decommission the school. So I believe it was May 6th is when they could start. And they have to have it done by the middle of August.
Great.
Are you going to revisit that with Mr. Teagues, Dr. Teagues? Sean?
Pending the board's decision on the school, would it be possible to adjust that schedule to start after school lets out this year?
It could be. I had, the last conversation I had about it was with Butch Feely, and yeah, it's possible we could. I don't know necessarily what that time frame is really going to, whether they're really going to have that decision on Wednesday or not, but
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Sure.
yeah.
Okay. Well, that, of course, we leave that up to you.
Yeah, we could,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
there's definitely possibilities to try to change that time frame if that ends up being
Great.
what happens.
Okay. Any other questions?
No. Bye.
All right. Can we put this on consent?
Yes.
Next up, it's still Bob. Next up on the agenda is the alley east of Washington. I can't read this. The alley east of Washington 5th to 8th sewer project?
Yeah. It's always fun trying to narrow down, describe an alley, like which alley you're talking about, because
I get it. Okay.
We
I
have
get it now. It just took
conversations
me,
about this all the
it
time.
just seemed like random words.
they
I was reading
always
there.
wind up being so wordy, but really there's just no way to really describe it without a whole bunch of words.
Okay, thank you.
So again, We advertised for bids the same time frame as the A Street job, and we opened up bids March 12th. We opened them up at the same time. We got 2 bids for this one. The bids ranged from $538,000 to $709,000. The apparent low bid at opening was from Big Sky Corporation for the $538,410. Our engineer's estimate was a little bit lower than that at $447,000, but we did have a budget of around $600,000 for this project. So while the bids did come in high, we still had the money for the project. So staff is recommending awarding that bid as well.
Have you worked with them before?
We've worked with Big Sky on a few different projects, and they've been pretty good. They did the sewer project out on public Vandal area. So, and they've worked for us, and they've worked out well in the past. So.
When you all do like an alley project like this, do you communicate with the homeowners or anything for access to their house or waste or anything like that? Like,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah, we do. We coordinate with it's Northwaste,
Yeah.
Inland Northwaste, yes. We coordinate with them. We do neighborhood letters or door hangers and all that stuff. And luckily this is a good portion of this is our block that the Haddock building is on, so we know our neighbors, so we'll know. But yeah, we do.
Right on, thanks.
Great.
All right, any other questions? And can we put this on consent? Thank you.
Bob show is over.
We hope to see you again in the spring. Maybe less spending of the money, though.
More daffodils.
More time. All right, next on the agenda is staffing for the Adequate Fire and Emergency Response Program grant application with Alyssa and Brian Nickerson.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Okay, so we're working, excuse me, on a grant application. It's staffing for adequate fire and emergency response programs, so it's short as SAFER. It's under the umbrella of FEMA, and it provides funding for fire departments to hire staffing. Our department falls under, it's a combination department, and under the this application process, they're reserving 10% of the funding to go to departments that are a majority of combination volunteer departments. So we're lucky to have that. There is no maximum award amount under this program, and there is no cost match. However, you were to keep the folks employed for 3 years after they're hired from that point forward, and I had neglected to put that in my CCSR, so I wanted to make sure that I shared that. They're hoping to announce the program this summer, or announce the awards this summer, but they said at the latest it would be September 30th of 2024. Brian is very eager to get these positions filled if we're awarded. There is a 180-day recruitment period. However, if you want to start prior to that, you can ask for an amendment and start early. And I'll let Brian tell you a little bit about how we got to this point of needing to have additional paid staff on our department.
Well, as you know, we've had challenges over the years, primarily the paramedic coverage. That's kind of where we fall short quite a bit. Our volunteer paramedics cover as much as they can. We only have 5 now. One just got cleared to run, but he's also just taking on another job. And we have one actually that's that just got hired in Pullman who was working in Clarkston. So he's going to be probably out of the loop for at least a year. So this is just an ongoing cycle every year. With our license to provide ALS advanced level service to the community, we're required to cover 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If we don't do that, then obviously we can lose our license, and that's not a good thing just to lose your license other than to say, hey, we can't do this no more. We do have a waiver with the state that does allow us to kind of a night, weekend, a couple days here and there to offset those times and not have coverage. The only rule in that aspect is we have to communicate that with everybody, including Gritman, the medical director, all the outlying agencies that we respond to. We do provide paramedic level service not only to the city of Moscow, to the Moscow Rural Fire District, which that is encompasses the ambulance's response area, but also in the entire Lake Talk County. So it's a benefit for everybody in the entire county. It's not just here in the city limits, so to speak. Over the years, 2 years ago, the city staff does have 2 paramedics that are administrative folks. 2 years ago, they covered over 51% of all the shifts out of the year. Last year is about 37%. So again, it fluctuates every year, and that's the challenge. And we are significantly burning out not only the paid staff, but also the volunteers. This would allow us to provide one person per shift, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to offset those times where the volunteers can't cover, and then also provide some other opportunities to help out with onboarding and some other training aspects for the volunteers and other folks. So we've done this as long as we can, and it's a step. It's a very, very baby step, and my goal is to keep it as small as we possibly can, and this is the first step. So
I have 2 questions for you, Chief. So looking for 3 full-time firefighter or paramedic, would you primarily focus on the paramedic, or?
it will primarily be that, because that's where the shortage is, or the lack of coverage is, primarily.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be the primary thing.
And then what is the timeline for submission, or the deadline for submission for the grant? Or?
The grant is due on the April 12th, so just a few weeks. There was a short timeline on this. It didn't open until March 11th, and then it's due April 12th, so.
Nice. Thank you.
As the council is aware, we've been working with a volunteer organization to come up with a shared funding for these positions. So we have an agreement and consensus between the volunteers in the city to fill these positions. Now, the city is not does not have the financial capacity to fund these positions right now. So the general agreement between us and the volunteers is they would fund the positions 100% for the first 3 years. Then we step in at 5%, 10% the next 15 to 20% in the 7th year. And then that's essentially would be our contribution moving forward, with them funding 80% of these positions and the city funding 20%. We'd also contribute to ambulance replacement, funding 25% of those replacements in the future. This is a great opportunity to help save the volunteers that first years of funding. So if we're able to get that grant funding, then the volunteers would not have to fund that for that first 3 years. And then year 4, we'd start with our 5% city contribution, 95% volunteers, and then the city would increase its share 5% per year until it reached that 20% share. So this would be a great opportunity for us to help save the volunteers for that first 3-year time period.
Good timing.
We do have an agreement drafted. The outline's been shared with the volunteers. We received feedback, so we've got the final. That'll be coming to the council at the next committee cycle.
What is the median salary for a paramedic?
On average up here, about 65, roughly.
Is there any concern that there'll be resentment among the volunteers? So some people are getting paid and some people aren't?
So they took a vote amongst themselves, the entire organization. They went through a process, and then it was unanimously voted in favor of to provide this forward. They see a need. Again, it's going to be challenging. Mm-hmm. There's going to be times, and that's part of the thing, if you will, is we've got to work through those challenges. But I think overall, I think everybody sees the need, because the other option was to either forego the ALS coverage, which is not a very good option, in my opinion. But they felt that it was needed, and they voted, and the board unanimously voted in favor of it. So, but everybody in the organization had input twice. So, yeah.
And then the positions will also be available to help with the fire assistance, correct?
To help with what?
Help with the fire department
yeah,
assistance.
well, yeah.
That's just a given. Just want to make sure we said that, because that's part of what the program requires us. So right now, we're still fine-tuning the dollar amount for this. And so right now, at this point, we're asking to apply for 1.3 million, not to exceed that amount. There's a meeting this week that'll help us further determine that amount. So if it does change, we'll update the staff report before it goes to council.
And hypothetically, if we're not awarded the grant, then back to the drawing board, or just kind of maintaining and?
No, we had the existing agreement with the volunteers that they would fund the positions for the first 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep. So we wanted to have that agreement in place between the city and the volunteers regardless of the grant outcome.
Got it.
Because this need is something that we needed to address. They do have a fair amount of money that they have accumulated from billing for medical transport services that they would be utilizing to fund these positions during that 3-year time period. But if we can have the grant funded, that would definitely be everybody's preference, and that would preserve their funding for those future vehicle replacements as they're needed.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions?
I'm excited about this.
Yeah.
All right, can we put this on consent?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy writing.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're a rock star. Next on the agenda is the City Shop Design Services Agreement with Cody Riddle.
Okay, hello. I think the deteriorated condition of our shop is probably, not probably, I'm confident it's not a surprise or a secret to anyone. It's been identified as one of our biggest challenges for a number of years, and as a result, it's been prioritized by council, both in budget exercises, the capital improvement plan. And so with that, we actually issued a request for qualifications last fall for design services for the city shop. We received 7 responses, so it was well responded to. A panel of tenants or operators of the building conducted interviews earlier this spring, and narrowed it of three of the groups that scored highest. Unanimously, the group selected Lombard Conrad Architects out of Boise for the design services. They're actually familiar with, they've done other work here. They were involved in the police station and actually conceptual studies of the shop site itself years ago. So we drafted a professional services agreement that was included in your packet. It's been reviewed by legal. And so we are asking for your support and that you recommend approval of that agreement today. The hope is that we start either this fall. We hope to provide the contractors ultimately with the ability to start construction this fall, but certainly by next spring. So thank you.
Unanimous, that's cool.
Questions?
Nope.
Wow, okay.
So if you ever get a chance, we have a really neat model that it was too big to.
All right, well, I guess if we have no questions, you got any other tidbits of information for us about this?
Not at this time.
We wanted to see the model. I guess we can recommend
Yeah.
that this, recommend approval and have this go on consent agenda.
Thank you.
Thanks. We better put something on the actual agenda.
I don't think so.
No? All right, next on the agenda is the City of Moscow Communications Plan with Bill Belknap.
Slide over here briefly.
I like how you have to switch chairs.
I know. Look at that. Just for a little bit of background, over the last couple of years, the council has previously expressed a desire for the city to improve our communications with our various stakeholders, and whether that's the community or others, outside, inside the community, we really want to try to work to improve those communications. The city had intended in the FY24 budget to hire a new communications manager to lead up that effort, but due to some of our financial constraints recently, that has prevented funding that position, and I don't see that position being funded in the next 2 to 3 years in the very least. We have worked with an administration and among staff to develop a communications plan to help guide this effort, really focusing on leveraging our existing personnel and really trying to develop a structure and a focus for our communication efforts moving forward. So that's a document that is before you today. The goals are identified in the plan really were to work with the council staff and partners to ensure communication outreach efforts, objectives and outcomes align with our strategic goals, and promote community understanding of the city's mission and purpose. We also wanted to focus on sharing accurate and non-biased information promptly through a variety of communication channels and ensure that crisis communication efforts are timely and well-directed. To keep city employees informed. I mean, city employees are one of our largest stakeholder groups, to make sure that they're informed and involved in the broader mission of the city and the organization, ensure understanding and being informed of ongoing and current community programs, activities, and initiatives, and then to evaluate and track our communication program. And to ensure that it's being effective and to update and adjust as we need moving forward. So those were kind of identified as some of the high-level goals of the effort. So there are a number of kind of simple key actions I was going to walk through. So one of the first was to create a position, a communication specialist position, through the reclassification of the prior digital media specialist position. So Corey Oglesby has been in that position for some time and is very interested and excited about getting more involved in the city's communication efforts. He has managed a lot of our social media, press release outlets already, so we're looking at expanding his role within that area. So we wanted to create that focal point while we weren't able to bring on a new dedicated position by carving out some time out of Corey's schedule and working on modifying his job duties and responsibilities. We'll be able to get more effort applied to that direction. We then move forward the creation of a communications team with key people within the variety of departments to assist with identifying messaging and communication efforts. We also have identified and planned working on developing department liaisons to collect information, stories, and to make sure that we're getting that information out through our communication channels. And then to make sure that this is kind of organized efforts to develop a communications calendar to plan and program those communication campaigns. We have kind of your seasonal activities related to snow removal or maybe water flushing, so getting those on a calendar when we know we're going to anticipate have that happening, but also to make sure that communications about different events and activities isn't stepping on top of each other, and that we're pacing it to where we're not overwhelming people and then having this dry spell, that we're kind of getting a good constant flow of information out through both our press release channels and social media as well, and getting a good representation of the different activities and programs across the city. We want to work on standardizing our communication process and procedures, so we're working on developing kind of a help desk application when people want some assistance with communications, whether it's a promotional video, a press release, a social media, whatever it might be. They have a system to request that, to calendar it, so that Corey can manage his workflow from all the different departments, and we can get that plugged into that communication calendar. And we also need to work on, enhancing our relationships with our regional and local media to make sure we're sharing information that is of value to their viewers and readers, and that we help communicate the city's activities. We also want to work on focusing and coordinating some training and crisis communications for both staff and elected officials. Those are things that we never can anticipate sometimes when they occur, and I think it's a good thing for us to have an ongoing training among staff and elected officials about how to best respond in those times of crisis. And also, it's about time for us to work on updating our web presence and the image currently on the city's website to keep that kind of refreshed. It's getting a little bit dated as well. And then finally, to really working on improving and enhancing internal communication with city employees. Finally, with any effort, we want to continue to monitor our reach, how many people are subscribing, reading posts, and make sure we're getting good coverage and making sure that we're communicating, I guess, in the means that people wish to be communicated with and in the most effective way that we can with the community. So we'll kind of continue that as an ongoing effort from there. So that's kind of just a quick overview of the document, really trying to give us some structure and focus on how we approach communications and really working to do a better job.
How did you put those teams together to decide who's going to come up with the important things to share?
Essentially, it's the deputies, it's the emergency service folks, and myself and Corey are kind of the key members. So that's a representative that covers every department across the city. So we want to make sure that we have that there. Then we'll have individual liaisons in each individual department that Corey will interface on a regular basis to say, hey, what's happening in your department? What's happening this time of year? What's coming up? Is anything interesting or unique happening, to try to collect that information, those ideas, so we can make sure that we're sharing that with the community so they know all of the things that the city does.
Yeah, nice.
And you talk about training. Who does that training?
Somebody outside. For crisis communication, we're going to find somebody who has expertise in that area. So that's something that we'll look probably budget for in the FY25 budget, because certainly there'll be some level of cost for that, and then work on a workshop where we bring in an outside trainer for both council and senior staff.
Should something happen before the training, who is the contact?
So it's going to depend upon the situation. So if it's law enforcement, that would be Anthony Dollinger, who is the current public information officer. Anthony received some fairly extensive communication training at the National Academy, as well as some additional training that happened, obviously, lessons learned during the course of some of our recent events. So it's going to depend on the nature of the event. So if it's general city operations, it might be myself. If it's a public utility-related activity, it might be Tyler. If it's going to be fire-related, it'll likely be Brian. So we'll have the key people that represent and have the knowledge of that particular subject matter.
Great.
I think this is a great document and really well put together. I appreciate it. Lots of great ideas. I just have one thing that I would like to see added to the language, and that is about receiving information. So a lot of this is, I mean, it's a great plan about how do we get information out, but I think it would be nice to see, how many priorities are there? 4 or 5? 4 priorities. I'd like to just see some inclusion of how do we systematically deal with and receive information too, so that it's not just us talking to other people.
Yeah.
And so that was that was just one of the things, or really the only thing that I just thought, well, I'd like to see us also coordinate how we receive information, because somebody calls the department. Do we pass that information along? Where does it go? How does it get resolved? All those things.
Sure.
Yeah, because I think, in my limited experience thus far, the communication essentially just gets dropped into our email inboxes. But is there a way that, like, or whatever people might have on their mind, they send it our way for sure. Is there a mechanism on the city website right now that gets infiltrated into city communications? Like if somebody wanted to get in touch with, I know you can contact departments directly, but is there a broad stroke contact us?
So there's a communications, yeah. So it's pretty broad depending upon the department. So every department has a contact, has
Sure.
contact information
Sure.
on it. We also are working on developing a communications page, which will have kind of a media contact information or media contact point for questions. The council's always just going to have its email. So if an individual, shares information or reaches out to the council, that certainly is there. Staff is here to support the council. So if you have any question, you receive a question, certainly forward it to staff. We can, if you want to respond, we can find information, collect information, provide you with the background to provide a response. Or if you want to request staff to respond to that individual, we're certainly happy to do that. It's something that we don't want to step in the council's role to communicate with the citizens that you represent, but we're here to support you in whatever capacity you would like us to do. So when you receive those requests, please don't hesitate to send them to me, and then I can then collect the information together for you to provide a response. Or if you want to simply say, hey, can Bill, can you find somebody to respond to this individual, answer this question, we're happy to do so. It's been kind of this discussion between should the council president play that role, does the full council have that role? And I know it's been, the full council wants to have the ability to be able to respond to their constituents as they desire, and we're here to support you in whatever way that we can. So just know you can always forward those to me if you want some information so you can respond. It also sometimes, we don't want to have that individual getting 6 different responses, which can be a challenge. So that's why we've kind of suggested maybe the council president could be that avenue, so there's a single response with staff support. But that's something that there's been a little bit of debate among the council about who should,
The right
individual
to-
council members don't want to give up the role because they may not agree with the response of the council, whoever's council president at the time. So that's been a little bit of a tricky one. We're here to help however you need. Just let us know, and we are happy to hop in to provide a response or provide you the background information you need to provide a response.
I know that in the packet, you had indicated being able to track how many people access the site, the city website. Do you have an updated figure, like on a,
Actually, Corey and I went over a report here a couple weeks ago, and we can provide you one.
yeah, I'd be curious to know. Yeah, thanks.
That council, when people contact the council directly, that'd be a great thing to talk about when we get new council members, because, it is tricky. You don't want to, you don't want council telling individuals in the city, oh, hey, could you respond to this? You don't want me asking David Schott to do something. Everything really should go back through you.
That is our
If it's
preference.
information related, I always send thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for reaching out. I'll talk to, whatever. Like, it's usually, but it'd be good to discuss that as council
Yeah.
on how we can be efficient about that, because I like to respond to people, but it is usually more like, thanks, I'll check with,
The right person.
I'll loop in the right people.
And if it's through the council distribution list, I am copied on that.
Right.
So I'm there, but I need to know how you want me to interact and support you. How best can I support you? Just let me know, and we'll get all of the information together for you.
Great. What's the next step for the communication plan?
So we're presenting it today to the committee, and then I'd like to have it continue on to the council, just so we can touch base with the full council. And we're already kind of moving forward with the reclassification we recently completed in the last month for the communication specialist, and we'd like to continue the effort. And really, we're soliciting any input. So the idea of how do we collect information, how we receive information as well is a good one. But we'd like to receive that input from the full council, and then we can start moving forward.
Okay, so we want to move forward with this version at this point to
I
the
think
full
so.
council? Okay.
With your addition.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I can make the same suggestion at council, or you guys can edit it for,
And
or you can
think through
ignore
how,
me.
yeah, we'll think through how that could be integrated and suggested. It probably won't make any edits before the next council meeting, but certainly I think it's a good comment. We can think through how we see we can incorporate
Yeah.
that and identify how we're going to collect that information from the community. So we have our citizen surveys, we have a variety of
True.
other means.
Yeah.
And so we can certainly highlight that in the document as well.
I'm glad Corey's on board to do more. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, Corey is a huge asset
Yeah.
to the city, so.
Great, so we recommend that this go for the full council?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thanks,
Any
Bill.
other issues or information from staff? No? Anybody?
No?
All right, then I think we should adjourn.
I'll go with that.
Great.